To my immediate right is Bruce Marshall of AIC Title. Next to him is Joan Roberts of Insured Aircraft Title Service. Jeff Snowden of Aero-Space reports next to Joan, and least but not least, Gilchrist of Gilchrist Aviation Law. So we're here to talk about the secrets of the closing call. And what is the secrets of the closing call? Well, to steal Jack's line, the secret is to not have any secrets. You know, disclosure, communication, early and often, put everything out there, make sure that everything is lined up properly, and you should generally be fine as long as you have proper professionals with you. But regardless of that, there's always certain things that help move closings along or jam them up. So let's talk about a few things that are out there that you guys must see all the time. I wanted to start with know your customer requirements. Those have obviously changed a lot over the past couple of years. How does that influence your day-to-day business, the closing itself? And is there any way to streamline it? Basically, how do you handle the KYC requirements? Bruce, if we can just start with you.
Okay. Of course, we're not a regulated industry from the standpoint that any of our companies are under KYC requirements, but at our company, what we do is we've hired an outside third-party screening company, and we do this on everyone that we touch in our business, whether they're submitting documentation, whether they're involved in a deal. All of the parties, we run them through the screening process that covers about 70 different databases. And, you know, when we're working with lenders, we get that additional area of support so that at the end of the deal, we're hopefully vetting out the people we're doing business with and hopefully not doing transactions involving the bad guys.
Joe?
We have to do KYC because of our relationship with the bank. We don't want to wire money to anybody that is one of the bad guys and ruin our relationship with our bank, get our account shut down with the bank. So we spend an extensive amount of time vetting everybody, buyer, seller, anyone receiving and remitting funds.
Jeff?
You know, I kind of remember a time where it's a little hard to say that escrow was the Wild West, but to where you used to accept funds from anybody. You accepted that, you know, Jeff Snowden's the president of this company, so if he signs a bill of sale, the FAA takes documents at face value, so we do too. And I think we've just learned some lessons that you have to do more than that. I think our customers want it. I think you pull documents, and I think you find that a lot of times stuff that's on file with the FAA isn't accurate. And I think that there's just kind of, you know, somebody talked this morning about bad apples. There's a ton of them. And I think we've just kind of, we've learned some lessons, and it's made us know that we have to do it. And it's just hard because there's so much, there's so many requirements that we already have, and you add this element into it, it just makes it harder to get these deals ready to close. And you ask these customers to provide it to you, and, you know, closing's coming, and they're still not getting this information to you. So I think if we can help educate people to provide this stuff up front so we're not delayed at the end, that will go a long way.
Jack, how about you? And are there any differences given that you're the one law firm representative of peers opposed to title companies?
Thanks, JC. A little bit different, slightly different for us as a law firm in a couple of respects. One is certainly as a law firm, we have an obligation really going in to virtually any transaction to know the client, to know the parties involved in the transaction. I think certainly there is a high level of scrutiny to us because we are regulated, so to speak, as well, to a closer extent. I think the challenges for us are certainly there's client confidentiality, there's this aspect of what we do that we have to protect the client confidences and the process of what we do. But nonetheless, we've taken a position now really that KYC expands past really holding money or transferring money. For us, it ends up being one that we don't want our name in the paper. We don't want to have that dealing with somebody that technically they end up on a list that we really shouldn't be doing business with. And there's a lot of those in the process. And as Jeff mentioned, it's a Wild West out there in some aspects of what we do. So caution is I think hype is an understatement for us now.
All right, let's pull the curtain back a little bit. So how late is it too late to get you wire instructions? Because I assume that you have to vet not only where the money's coming from, but where the money's going to, correct?
Absolutely. And like I said, the earlier you get the information to us, the better, because we are going to have to stop and vet everybody you send us disbursement instructions to. So if you want your closing to go off on time, get that information to us as early as you can.
You know, the problem, can I inject here, JC, too? People think, as long as we get you the money before closing, that's fine. But the surprise that often comes in is the money didn't come from buyer, it came from, and maybe not even buyer's lender or something like that, it came from a third party, and then suddenly we're on notice that we've got to find out who's the sending company, who's the sending entity, their names on the wire transfer, that sort of thing, that puts us on notice that it's not coming from the buyer, we've already vetted the buyer, but in the process, so if money's coming from somebody other than the buyer's name, buyer's bank, then we really need to know early on in the process. It'll halt the transaction for us. At least it'll slow it down significantly too. So.
Yeah, I think Jack is right. Quite often, we get surprised late in the game after we've had initial wire instructions from the customer that other players are suddenly involved in the transaction. And that's what really slows things down, creates problems, because we have to vet each and every one of those individuals. And sometimes deals fall apart when there's a player involved that we can't verify or that there may be a problem with.
And we know too that a lot of the lenders that are being paid off on transactions, they have to vet who the money came from as well. They're not willing to just accept a payoff from us. They want to know who that money came from.
And on a related point, how often do you guys come across something that you either think is fraud or is actual fraud? And to the extent you've come across it, have you ever had to report anybody?
We see fraud every week at our place. It's absolutely terrifying. But, and we've seen, I have had some of the most legitimate looking wire transfer instructions and invoices sent to me. I recently on a closing had one at the very last minute. They sent me and said, and I believe it was to Westar. They said that, oh, they want you to send to a different account than I sent you earlier. And I was like, all right, I looked at the instructions. We keep wire transfer instructions on file for Westar. We have about 5 accounts. And I noticed this is to a different bank. They had even set up an account, same name, Westar Corporation or whatever. And I called Westar to verify because our policy is to verbally verify all wire transfer instructions. Absolutely fictitious. It would have been about $70,000 out the door.
And what do you do, other than obviously not sending the wire, did you report that to authorities? Or?
We do. We work with the FBI all the time on these fictitious wire transfer instructions. And we even had people, we had one closing where they were watching our customers' email, captives that they knew even when the people were up on the test site. So they knew it would be a good time to send us fictitious wire transfer instructions. And they knew our policy was to verbally verify them. So they called in to verbally verify those instructions. Fortunately, the agent whose deal it was recognized this was not the voice of the man he was purporting to be.
One of the things that we do at AIC is we use our technology to have our customers upload their wire instructions as well as download our wire instructions using two-step authentication in our closing room to make sure that those instructions are protected because of some of the incidences that have gone on in the industry. And again, just as Joan mentioned, we get a verbal confirmation on any wire instruction, even with people we've done business with for years, just to confirm with the people we know that those are in fact their instructions.
You know, we sing closing statements, and you have a lot of these people that want to wait till the very end. Expenses have to get finalized, and it may be the morning, it'll be the day before, and you'll get this detailed disbursement letter, only to find out that there's, send it to this maintenance shop, send it to this my broker, and there'll be 5 sets of wiring instructions that you have 12 hours to get everybody to call. And so, Jack and I were talking about it, is there's so much risk for us, and that if we can't get that done, we're not going to close. And I know that that can anger people and it can delay closings at times, but we're not going to risk wiring out money to somebody that it shouldn't go to. And the one thing that I think, we deal with this every day, and so our escrow agents and our staff are well trained and know what to look for. The people that we're dealing with that maybe is buying a plane every now and then, they probably have no clue about this wire fraud stuff. So we'll send PDFs, we'll send them as much information. Be diligent, pay attention to this type of stuff, but people don't know what to look for. So it scares me that we do everything we can, but at the end of the day, if somebody's not watching out and they're clicking links, they're going to get spoofed. And luckily, we're a second line of defense and we're trained, so we can catch it. But I think that's the one thing that you all can help with, that is just know that that is a big threat, and be diligent. If things don't smell right, if it looks weird, don't open it, don't click it, because people are watching us.
Yeah, I think that's the problem, as Jeff said. The problem here is we're playing defense. And I asked our FBI guys that came to town, because they recognize, the FBI recognized that the aviation industry is a particular target for these malplayers out there in the industry. We are, because of the way we deal with money, we deal with high dollar transactions, we deal often with email dialogue and that sort of thing. But since we're playing defense, we want to play offense. We want to be on the offensive end of this thing. And really, that's where, as Jeff said, we rely on you guys need to be diligent about this in this process, because it's your customers, it's parties to your transactions that if they become a victim of email fraud, basically, somebody takes over their machine. From the time they do that, what's happening is that they stand back and they study a transaction. People are not stupid. They study the transaction dialogue, the patient, they'll be involved in email dialogue, reading email dialogue for up to 30 days, a month, or longer. But they're studying the transaction. They know who's who, they know what the names are, that sort of thing. And that happens on, again, we're playing defense here. You don't want us to be the only players in this process. Playing defense is not the way we want to do it. We want everybody to be on the diligent side of this, which I think comes to a need for greater training, probably, honestly, as to how do we guard ourselves, protect ourselves against this threat in the industry. Huge problem.
At AIC, we've been very fortunate that we've never lost a dime of our clients' money. But one of the things we saw is that when the FBI became engaged with all the escrow companies in Oklahoma City and helped them with some of the processes and things that they were doing, we saw that industry tighten up and play defense and do a pretty good job, because then, as Jack mentioned, the people watching the transactions lie in wait, and they're looking for the weakest link. And unfortunately, when our industry was able to put up a good defense, they go to some other easier aspect. And one of the first times that we came close to losing some money was where a broker who was trying just to expedite and help out in the situation forwarded some wire instructions from an avionics vendor who was supposed to get a disbursement. Well, he only detached the wire instructions, sent them on to us, and a day later, after he had been hacked, he got similar wire instructions, obviously, to another bank, and then he detached again and furnished those to the folks in our office. And we were able to catch it before the money got out of the United States. But it was an unfortunate situation that had he even sent us or forwarded us the email, the hacked email, we would have been able to recognize that the email addresses had been altered, and some of the signs that our people had been trained to do to recognize when something had been hacked or spoofed, they would have recognized it and prevented it right at that time.
A couple of interesting questions coming in on Slido. So, are there any reporting rules that basically guide you how to handle a hit if you get somebody on a bad guy list or whatever it may be? Do you guys provide it with guidance? I hear that you're communicating with the FBI pretty consistently, so I would assume so. But
What was the question?
Are there
So-
new reporting rules changing how you handle OFAC hits? And I'm not aware of the new rules, although our compliance department probably is. Is that
I kind of twisted the question a little. I just made it more general. So let's say you search John Doe John Doe is on an OFAC list or whatever, a FinCEN list, whatever it may be. Are there rules, or what are your standard operating procedure if that happens?
That's what I think is hard is you have a hit and we're not regulated, so who do you go report to? For me, if I see somebody hit OFAC or something, you go to the broker, you go to the client that brought you the transaction, and you just simply say, this guy's on OFAC, I can't do it. And it's as simple as that, you know.
Just withdraw from the transaction.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any specific reporting.
Yeah, we use Thompson Reuters as well, which is a bit more expensive in the process because we get more than just hits that you get on OFAC in the process. But I think what the question deals with is, and it's probably true for everybody out here, if we have something suspicious, technically, best thing for us to do is to turn in. FBI loves this stuff. Even more so, we found the Secret Service loves this stuff. So if you get somebody who's clearly fishing and trying to inject themselves in the process, there are people who really want to know this stuff, and they're diligent about it. Secret Service has a large group in Washington, D.C. that care a lot about what's going on in this industry. So
One of the things we have to do is that when we do get back a report on our third-party screening, whether it's OFAC or a number of the 70 other reports that we get, quite often we get false hits. So what we have to do is confirm and do a little research, either getting passports and other information or researching on Google and really searching out the customer to make sure that the person on their list is or isn't the person that we're dealing with. And of course, as everyone said, if it turns out to be that person, the first thing we do is we cancel the deal. We won't do business with them.
Fair enough. All right, so let's stay on, well, I don't want to say it's a similar topic because there are legitimate back-to-back transactions, but let's talk about back-to-back transactions and the complexities that it adds to you guys. How do you handle, again, for the sake of transparency, the secret of the closing call, how do you handle keeping everybody informed of what's going on without necessarily violating confidential parts of deals?
Well, I've heard the word transparency used so many times today, and I think a successful back-to-back deal is just all about transparency. Not necessarily what's being made in the middle, but to us, it's important either that the middle person puts up their own deposit because your contract is going to say buyer put up the deposit, or we have assignment forms that we have everybody sign where they acknowledge there is one deposit being put up for both contracts and being used for both contracts. If everybody's okay with that, it's fine with us.
I think one thing for me, and I don't know if you all agree, I don't see as many, it's the hot topic, but I think you don't see them as much. I've probably we'll do them, and it's kind of the same deal. You have your requirements, but I haven't seen near as many this year as in years past. And I think there's certain things, I think they've been around long enough that people know what questions to ask that potentially out them. I think, and actually, I think there is more transparent on them, the ones that you do see. We kind of toe the line, and there's a lot of times that I'll see an email that says, we're going to close on this side first, then we're going to close your side. So I do think that there's people that have found a way that there is a benefit to doing the back-to-backs. And so I do think people are more honest with some of their clients now to kind of say, this is the best way to structure it. And so I'm seeing more people on the ones, I'd say overall they're going down, but I am seeing more transparency on the ones that are still around because I think people are intelligent. People know that they're out there now, and so I think it's harder to do them, and people have stopped trying to do as many.
I think Jay Messenger indicated the whole key this morning when he said you have to have disclosure. Once you have that, it legitimizes what's happening.
And do you ever get any resistance to that disclosure from the middle party? I would presume we're the only one that would object.
Well, we have a lot of people that put pressure on us to divulge who the parties are. I say the seller talk to your buyer, and your buyer talk to your buyer. It's not us. We're doing the transaction. In the process, I think again, as Joan said, transparency that's the key to a successful transaction. And I realize that the reluctancy in some cases to guard information in connection with that. But ultimately, the parties have to know. Go back to the same question actually that was asked before about malplayers, of people on the OPAC list, for one, that is, there are people you can't sell to, right? I mean, in the process, so you don't know ultimately who you're selling to. There's some problems that you may have in connection to that from a legal perspective. So there's some challenges for sure. It continues, but it's, follow all the guidelines, try to keep the information confidential where it's possible, and otherwise, look, you're going to have to talk in order to have a successful sport.
I'm not sure if we've had only one vote, but it seems to be overwhelming that there still are a lot of back-to-back transactions out there. How about just another follow-up question on the back-to-backs? So how do you deal with, so you have seller number one, and he has a lender, and that lender is going to receive funds from buyer number two or buyer number three. Are you showing that entire path to that lender, or for their KYC purposes?
I go to the buyer and say, this is what it is. This is what they want. How do you want me to handle it? And usually it gets out. It may get outed, or, I kind of put that on them to figure it out. I'd say, I'm not going to confirm funds to this lender that aren't your funds. And so if you want to try and structure it this way, you know what they want, so figure it out. And so I kind of put it back on them and say, this is their requirements. I'm not making anything up. Work it out, let me know, and we'll go from there.
Because there are a lot of lenders that actually require seeing the wire ticket, the incoming wire ticket. They have to. They're regulated. They have to. They have to know who the money's coming from.
Right. How about DocuSign? Let's switch gears here a little bit. Has it truly streamlined the process? Are we still working out kinks? Is the FAA still working out kinks? What's your experience with DocuSign and issues? I know some people don't necessarily review the documents before they DocuSign them, and they get filed with errors. What are you folks seeing?
Well, for one thing, I've realized, and we have a different clientele than a lot of the lawyers in the business do, I think, but one thing I've realized, if you send somebody a document through DocuSign, they don't look at it. They click on it, put their signature on it. Even if you say, please review the address, make sure it's the right phone number you want to use, they don't look at it until after you file it with the FAA and you send it to them. And then they're like, oh, I wanted to use my Delaware address. Okay. We'll set it all aside then.
I should clarify, by the way, I was using DocuSign in its generic sense. I meant just electronic signature programs. Yeah.
I think it's huge. Henry? I think it's huge. You'd be surprised how often in the old days we get a FedEx package and there'd be nothing in there. And so, I think one nice thing is it kind of got away with the pink slips, and now you just have the application. But it's huge. It allows you, we can do, theoretically, if there's a no lien aircraft, no finance, we've closed deals the same day now. Open them in the morning if they fund. So I think it's made deals go quicker. I like it because with DocuSign and Adobe or whatever you use, it lets you know if the people do see it, because you used to still, I need this document. Well, I didn't get that email. Well, with DocuSign now, it's like, well, I saw you viewed it, yesterday, so you do have it. So it allows us to kind of know where people are at, that, okay, we know you've seen this. How come you haven't executed? And it allows us to be a little more proactive. You did see this, you haven't signed it, it's 2 days, is there something on there? Is an address wrong? Is a title wrong? Let us know. And so I think it's been a huge game changer, and I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I think we've seen that it's revolutionized the industry. More and more of our customers are using the electronic or digital signatures. Let me clarify on that, the availability of having the digital signatures. And initially it was only for customers that were completing the FAA documentation, the bill of sale and the application for registration, but now we're beginning to see that we're receiving many more other types of documents. We can put those up in our closing room. They can be digitally signed, delivery receipts, technical acceptances. We've even had some lenders start to utilize it for their security agreements, which again speeds up the process. It's kind of funny, that's something that if you've bought a house in the last 5 or 10 years, you've probably done it using digital signatures, but there's been a little bit of reluctance in some of the aviation lenders to do that. But now we're seeing a few of them actually getting comfortable with that, and I think it's speeding up the process, definitely.
That was going to be my follow-up, actually, because I represent a lot of lenders, and they're very resistant to sign a security agreement digitally. They're okay signing the releases digitally, but they're not too thrilled about doing the security agreement yet.
Yeah, I think just back, JC, on the earlier, everybody's position here, I think certainly digital signatures, the ability to sign documents electronically has increased the speed with which we can close transactions. And there's a danger with it too. The danger is that people wait until the 11th hour, which is a bit of a challenge for us in the industry again. But certainly has given us a bit more flexibility. The danger again is we encourage people to do it early, get it to us as early as possible, because we still have to, currently we have to print out documents, we have to print them out, physically deliver to the FAA. So it's not as if we simply send them to the FAA electronically. I think that's probably in the future, but it's not the way it is now. And as a result, we really have to get more. We have to proof documents and that kind of thing too. As Joan said, sometimes people don't complete documents. It's necessary to complete them with dates or whatever the case is too. So there's work to be done even after that. It certainly does help us with the overnight courier and relying on that as much as we can. So.
All right, let's maybe jump into the closing call itself. So in the good old days, we used to get on a call, and everybody, the 15 people would get on board, and everybody would talk about the weather in their city and their kids, and the documents being held in escrow while funds were being transferred and the lender was confirming receipt. It seems that those long closing calls are kind of going by the wayside. I was wondering if that's your experience as well, and why you think that's the case.
We still have a lot of multi-party closing calls, all the time. So.
Lengthy, or because I mean, we do those sometimes. The 5-minute call. Everybody gets on board. You have funds. You have docs. Great. Send me an email. Have a good day.
Yeah, I mean, I think the lengthiest part of it really is waiting for the bank to send the wire and get the confirmation. Sometimes you have a lender on that wants to wait until they receive confirmation of receipt of funds, or the seller wants confirmation of receipt of funds, and so that really is probably the longest part of the call. But we use closing calls a lot.
I think I think we still see some services, some closing calls, but probably for us, there's two areas, particularly in the commercial aviation work that we do a significant amount of that. Commercial aviation is often more time sensitive. We closed one earlier today, 2 of them, 2 planes, different jurisdictions. You've got engines off those planes, but yet even for more diverse jurisdictions. Everybody's looking for the perfect moment in time for the planes. Both of them, actually, in all of this case, all 6 airplanes, to be in a tax-friendly jurisdiction for a transfer. But so the timing sometimes is the issue as far as that's concerned. So a conference call is vital in the process. Everybody is on the line and knows what's going to happen. Can't rely on email. But more significantly, I think, is certainly when a lender's involved. Often the case is lenders, and they should, they want to know exactly where the record is, if their mortgage is going to go in the record at the same time that they're transferring, virtually at the same time they're transferring funds, so they're not exposed to the process. So we get some of that. I do think with the advent, the change of the last few years, the advent of email dialogue, people are a lot more willing to close via email, sometimes exclusively via email, which again we have to be cautious of based on what we talked about earlier. There are now players out there too. But then I think way back to when I started practicing, it was before email, and there was a lot more in-person closings as people showed up someplace to close the transaction, right? Now I didn't have to, of course, either. They call us on the phone and then fax us the documents. Anyway, I dated myself. So I think the long closing calls have changed quite a bit, I think, in the process.
One of the things that I did in preparation for this conference was to sit down and interview our 9 escrow agents. And one of the fascinating things I found out is that I have one agent that does about 30 to 40% closing calls on transactions. The rest of my agents are 10% or less, some as little as 1% in terms of the number of closing calls that they actually conduct. A lot of the things are, there may be pre-closing calls that happen to cover certain issues that a buyer or some party in the transaction has, but many of the transactions are now being done without closing calls. Some of it, is, we believe, is attributable to some of the technology that we put in place in our aircraft closing room. It's a virtual closing room where we have our management trackers. People are able to upload all of the documents. The digital signatures can be applied. All of the information can be collected in advance, and of course, it quickly identifies if there's a missing document, if there's something bottleneck holding up the closing. The energies can then be focused on capturing, getting that last piece of the puzzle. If everyone's comfortable, and we're finding that more and more people are getting comfortable with the technology. As my escrow agent said, it includes not only the millennials, but old guys like me that might be technologically challenged. They've indicated that people are getting much more comfortable with that, and so they don't need to have the long closing calls. I also sat in on a number of closing calls, and in fact, it's true. They've changed. They're much shorter now. Things that used to be 1-2 hours, well, everyone's set forever waiting on wire transfers and all the other things to occur, and even having someone run over to the FAA and file the documents, that's no longer happening. They're pretty succinct and quick, and oftentimes, to me, they almost appear a little bit redundant, because if everyone's done the due diligence, especially on these bigger transactions, all of the questions should be answered, that we've got the right aircraft and we have the right serial numbers. Now, the exception, I think, is what Jack mentioned. If you've got multiple aircraft or you've got a really complex deal, I'm not the person to say that you should do away with closing calls. I think there's a necessity, as well as when customers call up that morning or the day before and ask for closing the next day, sometimes there isn't the time to do all the due diligence and to review all the documentation to make sure that it's all proper and correct before it's being filed with the FAA.
Fair enough. We have a couple more questions here on Slido. So there's one that says there's a common thread of KYC that runs between the financier, escrow agent, and legal counsel. Surely there's opportunity to streamline this requirement. I'd like your thoughts, but just generally speaking, I think that there's a lot of overlap amongst what those different parties do, but everybody has their own requirement to do it. So I can't punt to Joan, and Joan can't punt to the lender. But I don't know what your general thoughts are.
Agreed, I agree. No, it's not working. I agree with that because of confidentiality reasons. We can't give you our due diligence that we've done.
Yeah, I think the same is true for us. I mean, everybody does their searches in a different way as well. I'm required to make certain myself. And the other, I think where it does come up is if somebody in the process has a problem with a player, that usually puts a pretty fast halt on the deal. In the process, I've seen that happen too. So where somebody, maybe a lender or legal counsel, comes up with a question or problem, then that certainly changes everybody's. We do share that information, at least to look for red flags in the process too. So, yeah.
I definitely think we could work together. I think it was when Shelley was talking on the lending panel and about due diligence and KYC, and it just kind of made me think, there are probably a lot of times where there's 3 parties and we're all 3 doing due diligence, and I don't know that there's one party that is the sole purpose, or the sole person that should be doing it. But I do think, and I don't particularly know the answer, but I do think there is a way that we can work together and figure out some way to share all the information. And I do think it's good for us to be able to bounce that off the other people, because I think it's just a second set of eyes on everything to make sure everything's on the up.
Yeah, I think the more eyes you have out there in a transaction, the better of catching a situation where something might have somehow slipped through the cracks. But again, I think from our perspective, even if some of the lenders and other people we work with are doing their own KYC, we're still going to do it ourselves. We believe that it's the best thing we can do for aviation, for our industry. Our end of it is to do that type of research because I think it's very similar to what IATA has been proposing. They're trying to self-police before they're regulated, and we take that from that perspective, that we would like to self-police before we in fact are regulated.
Follow-up question as well. So fintech is the low-hanging fruit application of blockchain technology. How will aviation escrow companies incorporate this or other new tech to improve? And again, it sounds like to a certain extent you are incorporating technology to assist and streamline the process. But how about blockchain? Is that something that's being actively discussed or even implemented yet?
That's something we've implemented probably about a year and a half ago into our aircraft closing room, so that some of the documentation that is being retained, not only are the digitally signed documents protected through the digital signature process, we're further backing those up on the blockchain so that all of the documents we file with the FAA are being protected and they're being retained. So that transaction, there is a record of it, because everyone has to remember, we're printing those documents and then filing them with the FAA. The last copy of the record of that transaction remains with us on our blockchain, and unfortunately, because the FAA doesn't accept digital documents, it's with us at this point in time.
I think you'd be crazy to think that it's not going to shift that way, but I don't spend a whole lot of time right now at all thinking about blockchain or anything. I probably should be more forward-thinking on it, and I do think that it will shift that way, but I don't see that anytime soon, and so I don't spend a whole lot of time worrying about it.
We haven't started that ideas.
Yeah, I think again, on security, everything's headed that direction, as are we. The process is that you protecting the information that's out there is it's preeminent in this world for sure, based on the fact that we've got aircraft worth multi-millions of dollars transactions and multi-million-dollar transactions in this process. We have to invoke the best technology that we can, I think, to protect clients' information. I think that's really right.
All right, well, we have about 3 minutes left. Do we have any old school questions or any other Slido questions?
That's great.
Hearing none. Al, thank you again for allowing us to speak here, and thank you all for your time and attention. Enjoy the rest of the conference.